Hello and welcome to another video, and today I want to talk about my reactions to Resident Evil 8. So this year for Game of the Year content, I'm not doing a most anticipated category. If I were going to do it, it probably would be Resident Evil 8 because I've never been more cautiously optimistic about a game, I guess would be the way I would say it. So rather than do that, I thought I'd take it and make a separate video. And as I'm talking about this, I'm going to show some of the footage from the Maiden demo that they just released on the PlayStation Store for the PS5. And Resident Evil 8, if we're going to talk about Resident Evil 8, we have to talk about Resident Evil 7. There's going to be some spoilers if you haven't played that game. Resident Evil 7 is not my favorite Resident Evil game. When I sit and do a top 10 list, and I've done a top 10 list of my favorite Resident Evil games, and I will link that video up and you can watch it, I put this game pretty low on that list, and there's a main reason for it, because while I think it's a fantastic horror game and a welcome return to survival horror, it's not a good Resident Evil game. You know, this was a game that they kind of took a Hills Have Eyes type story, and then it seemed almost like as a concept they made a completely different game, and then somebody said, hey, what if you made it Resident Evil? And in the last 5 minutes they threw a couple rooms in at the end of the game and then put Chris Redfield, who doesn't look like Chris Redfield at all in this game, and it's even more baffling when you look at his render for Resident Evil 8, and he looks like an older version of Resident Evil 5 and 6 Chris, so it just doesn't make sense. And Resident Evil 7 is a game that garnished, immense praise, and I don't want to sit here and call fans of Resident Evil 7 casuals or anything like that, but for a long-standing, lifelong fan of this franchise, it just was a disappointment. And Resident Evil 8, from what has been shown, has a couple things going for it that have me more cautiously optimistic about it than 7 after I played it. One of those big things is a more centered, focused story on Chris. Obviously, they make Chris look like the bad guy. I doubt that's going to be the actual case of this game. The other part of the game that I really like is the idea of putting werewolves and vampires in the game. I know there's going to be some bullshit, version of the virus in this game that makes these people vampires and werewolves, and I can't wait for the explanation because it will be terrible in a great Resident Evil way, but it's interesting, it's different, it's not something you've seen in Resident Evil before, and I think that's why I like it. One of my biggest critical complaints about Resident Evil 7 was the lack of enemy variety. Besides the Baker family and the Molded, which had like maybe 2 or 3 enemy variant types, that was it. Resident Evil 8, I'm seeing these weird vampire zombie things in this dungeon. There's vampires, there's werewolves, there's all sorts of shit going on. And it looks potentially way more interesting. There also seems to be more focus on gunplay and combat in this game, which looks interesting. Everything about it looks really, really cool. I'm really interested in the vampire side of this thing. Who is this tall lady? They've said her name. I'm just going to call her Lady D because I can't pronounce her name. I don't know how she fits into the Resident Evil story, but I'm very curious to see how. And one of the other cool aspects about Resident Evil 8, at least from what I've seen, and what I'm hoping and crossing my fingers, is I want more context for the character of Ethan Winters. Another reason why I dislike Resident Evil 7 over a lot of the other Resident Evils is they introduced a brand new character and then gave him no substance. Through that entire game, he's just a guy looking for his wife, and that's it. There's no backstory to him, really. There's none of that. You don't get any of that. You just have a guy looking for his wife. And that, to me, wasn't interesting. So in Resident Evil 8, I would love to see more exploration into Ethan Winters. Like, who is this guy, and why should he be in this series? And why should he be stacked up against the greats like Jill Valentine, Chris Redfield, Leon Kennedy, and so on? And that would be a very interesting aspect of this game that I would like to see explored. Otherwise, everything is looking great about the game. If you look at some of the footage from the demo here, this game has full ray tracing. It runs at a pretty solid 60 frames. There's a dip here or there, but it's not anything that I would look at and go, oh man, the game's going to be trash or anything like that. Also, it's a demo. I don't know how long this demo's been in development, but everything looks incredibly promising. And I like the setting way more than I like the setting of Resident Evil 7. So Resident Evil 8 has a lot going for it. It comes out May 7th, which is a really great time to release this game, honestly, if I'm thinking about it. We don't usually get high-profile games in the summer. Usually the summer, it's kind of like, last year we got Last of Us 2 in the summer, and I guess Ghost of Tsushima, which was cool because it kind of broke the summer up a little bit. So this year I'm kind of hoping for the same thing, but hey, we're kicking off the summer with Resident Evil 8, and that's really cool. With that being said, what would I like for the future of the franchise? Well, there's two drums I've been banging for the last year, and I'll say them here once again. One of them, Revelations 3. I think it's time to take Jill Valentine, give her a return, make her a little bit older, and give her her proper due in a third-person style Resident Evil game. You know, you just made two excellent remakes with Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 remakes respectively. You can do a Revelations 3. I really like the Revelations series, so I would be perfectly fine with a third entry in there. And bring back Jill Valentine. I would love to see a remake on the same level of 2 and 3 of Code Veronica. You know, there's all this scuttle out there of they're remaking Resident Evil 4. Please don't do that. Resident Evil 4 is a game that has literally been re-released every console generation since it's come out. I'm amazed it hasn't been re-released for the Xbox Series X and the PS5, but I'm sure it's coming in due time. And I would just love to see them put a cap in that and remake Code Veronica. Code Veronica is one of the most underrated and underappreciated Resident Evil games, and it's time. It's time to revisit that game. It's time to revisit that story. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this quick overview about my thoughts on Resident Evil 8. I will be doing a full review of this game. However, what I did say on the channel is late spring, so probably May and June. There's not going to be a lot of video content on the channel because I'm actually going to be moving into a new house at that time. Fingers crossed. And so at some point I'll get a video review out of this game, but I can't guarantee it's going to be day and date. So anyways, guys, remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And as always, until next time.